Celebrities have a lot of pull in their industry, and sometimes they use that pull to get their co-stars canned. Welcome to Beyond the Screen, I'm Nate, and these are the top 10 celebrities who tried to get their co-stars fired. Number 10. Michael Keaton. Growing up, Michael Keaton was my Batman. The first two Tim Burton directed Batman movies are legendary, and I'm never going to look at Danny DeVito and not see the Penguin. Okay, it's just not gonna happen. One thing I actually never knew though was that Michael was once married to his Batman Returns co-star, Michelle Pfeiffer. In fact, Michael actually tried to get Michelle fired from the project after learning that she had been casted as not only a villain, but as his love interest as well. While the split before production was apparently amicable, it was still an uncomfortable situation for Michael to be in romantic scenes with someone that he had, well, already been romantic with off-screen. At the time, Michael was also trying to get back with an ex-girlfriend and felt that Michelle's presence might ruin his chances. Well, as we all know, he was unsuccessful in getting her fired, the project went great, and the movie was great. So the only bad thing that ever happened was DC telling Tim Burton that his Batman 3 ideas were stupid. Hey man, Robin Williams would have made an excellent Riddler, you jerks. Number 9. John Stamos. John Stamos is not just a fun name to say, but is the man to blame for Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen being absent from the Full House revival Fuller House. A lot of fans of the original series were well aware of why the Olsen twins never returned, but for those of you who don't know, John actually tried to get them fired from the original series when they were still young. And by young, I mean before they were even a full year old. From the very beginning of the sitcom, Stamos complained that Mary-Kate and Ashley were very difficult children to deal with. Apparently, if one wasn't crying and screaming, then the other one was. Oh no, a baby screaming and crying uncontrollably. Now that is a unique situation. His dislike for the Olsens forced the producers to bring in a new set of twins, and these are John's real complaints that prevented those twins from taking over permanently. Number 1, they had red hair. Number 2, in his words, they were unattractive babies, and he knew that he made a mistake. That is an awful thing to say about anyone at any age. After realizing that, the Olsens were just kids and that all the other ones were just too ugly to be on TV, that the Olsen twins would be brought back. What's funny is that the studio eventually wanted to fire Ashley Olsen only and keep Mary-Kate, but John actually stepped in and blocked that call. It seems that over the years that he turned into something like an uncle for the twins. For any Mary-Kate and Ashley fans who are just curious as to where they are, they took a break from acting permanently and have been making waves in the fashion industry. Pretty neat. Number 8. Tom Hanks. Who would have guessed the guy that is basically America's dad would be the cause of a man being fired from one of his film sets? Turner and Hooch was a wonderful buddy cop movie starring a young Tom Hanks and this big beautiful doggo named Beasley. When the film first started its production, Henry Winkler, aka the Fonz, aka Barry Zuckerkorn, was the director. As the years have gone by, Henry has always said the same thing about the project. He got along much better with Beasley than he did with Mr. Hanks. The set was plagued with creative differences between the men who would argue constantly on set. Henry's directing style just clashed with Tom's performance style time and time again. After only 13 days on set, there was an altercation between Tom and Henry that left Henry out of work, and Roger Spottiswoode stepped in to take his place. Number 7. Alec Baldwin. In 2013, Alec Baldwin was attached to star in a Broadway production of the show Orphans alongside Transformers alumni Shia LaBeouf. Now from day one of rehearsals, Shia and Baldwin were at each other's throats. Shia's problem was that Alec was never off script. This was something that he considered to be very unprofessional. Shia has since claimed that he was so nervous about the show that he made sure to memorize every single line he had before setting foot on stage on day one. His methods were not reciprocated by Alec, who just kind of showed up with a coffee in one hand and the script in the other one, planning to rehearse in the moment. Well, Shia was furious and he apparently yelled at Alec to learn his lines right then, right there. He said, "Whoa, he's a lead, what's the deal? Why aren't you better at this?" Well, after a couple of weeks and one particularly rough day where Shia blew up at Alec in front of a ton of cast and crew, Alec took 5 and he had a meeting with the producers. He said that if Shia wasn't let go, that he was going to quit the project. Producers caved and Shia was canned. In the tabloid, they claimed creative differences, but Shia later shared his side, clearly upset with being dropped as if he meant nothing to the show. Number 6. Seinfeld Cast. Now for this entry, there is no one cast member that could be singled out as the individual who tried to get Heidi Swedberg, aka Susan, fired from the series. In the season 7 finale of Seinfeld, spoiler spoiler alert, Jason Alexander's character George Costanza is delivered the news that his wife Susan has suddenly passed away. George is thrilled, as he's been wanting to leave Susan for a while now, but it turns out off-screen, Jason was just as excited. So were Jerry Seinfeld, Michael Richards, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who made up the other 3 main cast members. According to Jason, he found it difficult to play off of Susan, claiming that there just wasn't a lot of chemistry between them. And as I said, this was a feeling that was shared with the entire cast. Julia Louis-Dreyfus said that it was impossible to have fun with her and her character, and that the producers were planning to write her off at some point in the near future. Well, the gripes of the cast were heard, and her character passes away from licking the glue on cheap wedding invitation envelopes that George insisted they purchase. It is very funny, and it's a great way to get a character written off of a show, but it's just unfortunate for Heidi that the entire cast was like, she's not a vibe. Number 5, Jason Momoa. It's no secret that filming Aquaman and its sequel was a bit of a sensitive task. For starters, Amber Heard not only played Jason's love interest in the film, but she was also dealing with the Johnny Depp defamation trial, so a decision had to be made if she was going to continue being involved with DC or if they would just recast her entirely. Well, it turns out that that conundrum was not because of the trial, but it was actually just because of her terrible chemistry with Jason Momoa. Amber Heard has always felt jammed into the DC universe, but we could go on about that forever. Ultimately, the studio never went forward with firing Amber, and it was all thanks to the CEO of Tesla and her former lover, Elon Musk. Back in 2019, Elon had one of his litigators send this scorched earth letter to Warner Brothers, basically threatening to tear the house down if Amber was left out of the sequel. Warner Brothers caved and moved forward. Imagine being so geeky and so rich that you could tell an entire studio what to do for you. You would make millions of movies just for yourself. Despite keeping her job, Amber has continued to hurl allegations against her co-star Jason Momoa to this day, claiming that he was dressing like Johnny Depp on purpose on set to mess with her. But as I've mentioned in previous news breakdowns on that topic, Jason Momoa always looks like Johnny Depp. It's just what some people in Hollywood look like. Number 4, Sylvester Stallone. Richard Gere is one of those actors that doesn't really act. Sometimes people just get hired for films because they have the face for it or the style. For Richard, he did not have enough class and moxie to keep a handle on his role in the film Lords of the Flatbush. He was casted to star alongside Rocky himself, Sylvester Stallone, and according to Sly, these two did not get along. Their beef was strong and long-lasting through the entire production, until it finally came to a head when one day Richard was just a little bit too into one scene and grabbed Sylvester aggressively by the collar. When Sly told him to lay off, he laid in instead. Now that scene was being filmed on Coney Island, so when the actors took a minute to take a break, they tried to, well, break each other. Sly was eating a hot dog alone in his car. Sounds very peaceful, but suddenly Richard stormed in to join him with like half of a chicken dripping in mustard apparently. Despite Sly's warning about mustard, like this whole thing started because of mustard. It dripped all over his pants, and in true Rocky fashion, he elbowed Richard in the face and threw him out of the car. The altercation resulted in Richard being fired from the project. Oh no, they had to decide between Richard Gere and Sylvester Stallone. I wonder how quick that meeting was. Number 3, Ryan Gosling. The Notebook is considered to be one of the greatest romantic movies ever made. Oddly enough though, the on-screen couple never got along during the shoot. They would fight with each other on set all the time and seemed to have completely opposite ideas on how basically everything should play out. One day in particular was pretty exciting for anyone who wasn't involved. Ryan called over the director and demanded that Rachel be replaced by another actress to read her lines with him. In front of 150 crew members, he claimed that Rachel just wasn't giving him anything to work with, and they would just constantly yell at each other between takes. Eventually, Ryan asked the director privately if it might be possible to restart the project with a new leading lady, and needless to say, he was laughed out of the room. As time went on, they finished the project, and the two actually dated for almost 2 years. The Notebook is now a classic, and Ryan Gosling is just Ken. Number 2, America Ferrera. In the early 2000s, Lindsay Lohan faced a ton of public scandals, but one that's not talked about often enough actually took place behind the scenes of a little show called Ugly Betty. Lohan was a guest star on the show in the 3rd season, playing Kimmy Keegan. Now, Kimmy was supposed to stick around for 6 total episodes, but that number was actually shrunken down to 4. The reason being was that her co-star and the lead of the show, America Ferrera, did not get along with Lindsay Lohan. According According to America and several of the Ugly Betty crew, Lindsay would show up with an entourage of people, usually under the influence of herbs and spices, and the production crew had to repaint her dressing room when she left because it was just so bad in there. One crew member alleged that she would cut images of her own face out of magazines and tabloid articles like she was making a collage or something creepy like that. America claims that one scene took over 30 takes to get right because she flubbed her lines over and over again. Lindsay's team of buddies have been adamant that America had just too much power and was the sole reason that she was asked to leave the show. Unfortunately, if you do bad things and enough people know about it, hey, karma comes around. And at number 1, Lucy Liu. Sony's first foray into the world of Charlie's Angels was a massive success when it released, starring Cameron Diaz, Drew Barrymore, and Lucy Liu as the main angels. The movie was filled with action, a little bit of comedy, and one of the strangest performances ever delivered from Crispin Glover. Seriously, that guy needs help. One interesting addition to the cast was the inclusion of Ghostbusters alumni Bill Murray as the man behind the mic, Mr. Bosley. Apparently, the set was anything but a comedy after Bill found out there was a scene rewritten without his knowledge. In an interview with the news outlet Deadline, Lucy Liu spoke up about her time on set and the situation surrounding herself and Bill. Apparently, Bill was away for a family event when a scene needed to be reshot for the movie, but instead of using a stand-in, they realized they could just film the scene without Bill Murray in it. So it went on and everything was fine. When he returned to find the change was made while he was gone, he was furious. He reportedly shouted at like half of the crew, including Lucy herself. At first, she wasn't sure why he was aiming so many of his comments directly at her. She didn't write the scene, she wasn't the director, but she asked if Bill was talking to her, which sent him into a full-blown meltdown. She decided to speak out on Bill's behavior on set, and he was ultimately written out of the sequel. Lucy is proud for speaking her mind, because at the time she was a relatively unknown actor and is glad that Bill's career seems to have suffered for it, because hey, Lucy was just the first of many people to comment on his behavior, but we'll leave that for another video. Those are the celebrities who tried and succeeded to get their co-stars fired. Would you like to see a part 2? Well, hey, let us know by leaving a like on this video and following the channel for more celebrity content each and every day. Thank you for stopping beyond the screen, and we'll see you next time.